the choices that I've made through that lens of ADHD in my life have resulted in me choosing to have a low self-esteem, choosing to have a low self-worth. Well, if I choose to have those things, as I have in the past, again, which doesn't mean I have to do that going forward, but you develop in that a tendency to become a people pleaser. You need to find validation and yourself outside of yourself because inside you feel broken.
You're listening to the Profit by Design podcast, episode 34. You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question. What has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. Today, Mike and I are bringing back a special guest. We have Chad Hatfield with us with Hatfield Builders and Remodelers out of Plano, Texas. Chad was with us for episode 4, You Can't Make This Stuff Up. And that was a very popular episode. If you haven't listened to Chad on that episode, I think you'll want to go back and listen. He shared some really good insights and got some good conversation going early on as we were launching the podcast. And we're bringing Chad back today. Chad shared some insights with me in a conversation he and I were having a few days prior to recording this podcast. And his insights really got me thinking about some things in my own business. And as soon as my wheels started turning in that direction, I knew that what he was sharing would probably resonate with a lot of you out there. So in the episode, Chad shares how since the retreat and over the last 4 months, he's really been connecting the dots with some things in his life. And I think that you've picked up on this from just the different conversations we've had with people who've been at the retreat. It's a very powerful experience. And part of what makes it so powerful is how real, how vulnerable, and how eager each of our participants and presenters are to learn and grow and keep supporting one another. The conversations continue to happen after the retreat. The support continues to happen after the retreat. And I want to let you know, we do have some spots open for March 2020. This is the time to get in. The price is going to go up the closer we get to March. So we allow you to, if we bring you into the retreat now, you're allowed to put a deposit down and then make a payment plan coming into the retreat. So Profit designers, it would be phenomenal to have some of you at our next retreat at Breakthroughs on the Bayou. That will be our 2020 4-week vacation legacy retreat. So if you want to know more, head on over to 4weekvacation.com. And now we're going to dive into this conversation with Chad.
So Chad, one of the things that we were talking about before we started this was how interesting it is to kind of dig down to some of the struggles that business owners are going through, or aha moments, or just things that they're, working on that are outside the normal kind of business building tasks. And one of the things that was bringing things into the door.
Right.
Can you get to that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, you and I have heard it for years, right? That what you bring in the door affects everybody else. And you know it in your mind, but you really don't truly know it. You really truly don't feel it. And what I was sharing with you was, even though we knew that what we bring in the door spills off and affects everybody else. If I walk in the door and I'm in a frantic state or I'm in a stressful state, that stress spills off onto everybody else. And that really hit home to me when we were at Sabrina's retreat and John Bates was talking about mirror neurons. And the whole time I'm remembering these times I've walked in the door to our office and I'm going, oh, yeah, that probably wasn't a really good idea to go in that state. I'd have been better served by driving home and working, from the house, because people mirror back to you what you put out. And if this has all kind of come full circle for me with the ADHD diagnosis, in January. And as I was telling you, as I've told people that hey, yeah, I was diagnosed with ADHD. They're like, yeah, and they're going, I guess I'm the last. Maybe I am the last to know, but that's okay. It's just the understanding of how my mind works and how my attitude or my state affects other people has been really powerful and really amazing. And I'm really grateful for it, because what I've learned about me, and Sabrina's got to hear about this on all of our calls, is the cognitive portions of the ADHD have been much easier to deal with than the emotional aspects of it. And I won't go too terribly far into that, but understanding what I'm prone to have around me in my state has made it easier for me to look and say, hey, I've chosen to be that way in the past. I don't have to choose to be that way in the future. And if that means I have to set boundaries up in the environment around me to keep myself out of certain things, then that's what I'm going to do, because I know that my state affects everybody in that office in a really, really powerful way. And that can be powerful good. It can be powerful bad. And if I've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I know that I have a propensity to dive in and I love solving problems, right? I'm really, really good at solving problems. I need to let other people solve problems. And if I just swoop in and take over their problems, how empowering is that for them? It's not. It's disempowering.
Yeah. So Chad, how are you doing that? Because it's one thing for us to have the awareness, okay, I need to let other people solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that look like? What are you doing differently?
Well, I have people around me like you that tell me, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. And should is a terrible word. We might replace that with the word could.
Call it out, coach.
I'm calling out myself. Right? I'm just going to speak about it in terms of me. And it's quite frankly, Sabrina, it's being super intentional about it and getting agreements from other people around me, like my design manager, my production manager, my wife who works in the business, my office manager. I've talked to all of them. And I said, hey, guys, I really have this tendency to really want to solve problems. I'm really, really good at brainstorming, and I'm really not exceeding the follow through of it, nor do I really like it. So if you talk about little issues around me, if I don't ask you if you need help with that, would you please recognize, or could you recognize that I might just dive off onto that path with you, and I might just try to start solving those problems without first asking you, are you just dumping this on me, or do you need to just let go of this, or do you need help from me?
Oh.
And giving them, because I may not recognize it in the moment because I understand how my mind works better now. So I'll give you an example. My production manager and my design manager are in their office, or in my design manager's office. I'm walking down the hallway. I hear them talking about a project that's had a few issues on it. And I stop and I look in, and I look in the office. Cody looks at me and he goes, do you need something, Chad? I said, I just heard you talking about it. He goes, yep. Do you need something? We don't need any help. We've got it. You asked us to tell you, so I'm telling you.
I love that. How is that for you to hear that?
Awesome. It's great. And I mean, even to the point where one of our carpenters that I really like, if I'm in the office at 7 a.m, he'll come in and he'll talk to me about stuff. Now he'll even say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't need to talk about that right now. I'm going to go talk about it with Cody. You don't need to get involved in that. So it's asking the other people on the team to help me, and then also laughing about it because that's what's really funny. It's like, God, I used to just dive into every one of those conversations, and it's all about, I used to use things like that, like, oh my God, there I go again. I'm picking this up again. I'm not letting people handle it. I'm just, gosh, there I go again. But now it's a different mindset for me. And if I matter and I love myself, I'm not going to beat myself up with things like that anymore. It's not productive. So I look at those things when Cody and the guys and the team and my designers are like, we don't need you, Chad. Your office is down there at the end. If we need you, we'll grab you. And I look at that and I laugh and I smile because I've asked them for help. I can laugh at myself about it and say, what they're really telling me is you need to go do your own job. And, we're going to do the jobs that we've all agreed that we're going to work on. And if we need you, we'll grab you. And when they do need me, they do grab me.
Yeah, it is because, I think As business owners, how many times have we been told, you have to empower your employees to do their own job and to do what they want to do. But as a natural tendency to be a fixer, right? We want to fix everything. We want to fix everything in our personal life and in our business life. And we're constantly trying to fix things. The only thing that it really, for me, is it just increases my frustration and my overwhelm, and it just bogs me down. It just clogs me.
And Mike, you know what it's all the fruit of? It's like that picture I texted you, and on the top left of it, it says fear, right? So that I understand now, that is an attempt by me, or has been in the past, right? Because our language is super important. That is an attempt by me to control the things, people, and circumstances around me. And what is that a product of? It's a product of fear, right? It's an attempt to control. Control is based in fear. And if I work hard enough, and if I, tell everybody what to do, and if I can be a superhuman person and manipulate all of these things so that it comes out with the right outcome and everybody's happy, even if you're able to actually achieve that, you've destroyed yourself in the process. I mean, that's what I did to myself for years. I'd work 7 days a week. What did I give up to do that? I gave up time with my wife. I gave up time with our kids. I gave up time with the people that are most important in my life, including myself. And I put myself dead last. And in putting myself dead last, I've done nothing but bring more of that garbage in through the door in our office, right? Because I was miserable. And I tell you, speaking with John Bates and the ADHD diagnosis and all of the things that I've studied on that and the emotional aspects of it, my whole life makes so much more sense to me in the last 3-4 months than it ever has. And it begins with those circles I was telling you about Sabrina had me draw. And it's so simplistic. Draw a circle, write me in the middle of it, right? The next circle out is you and Diane, your wife. The next circle out is you and Diane and the kids. It keeps going. And as we try to control those things and the outcomes in them, in the circles outside of those, if we're not centered ourselves in that middle circle, there's nothing to give. There's no amount of success. There's no amount of effort. There's no amount of anything that we can put into it to have an effect in those outer circles, because we're empty in the middle. And that's where I was. I was empty. I was miserable inside myself. And that is, as I look at talking with, John, and I read books like Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It and other things. And those are all great tools, but it never resonated for me as much as when I listened to John speak at the retreat. And it struck me as he described that dark tunnel of self-deprecation where we know when we're in it. And you're using language like, gosh, there you did it again. Oh, you let that happen. Gosh, if you only did this, you should do this. You should weigh less. You should look better. You should work less. You should have more money. And it's all negative.
That's the monkey mind.
It's the monkey mind. Exactly.
And what he says is we need to live in the listening. Say it for me, Chad. I can't remember.
Live in the listening of those who love you. They show you how you are received in the world. And I've had discussions with him about this since the retreat. He's an amazing person. And I've taken a lot of the ideas with John, and I do what I do a lot. I put my own little twists on it. And I thought about it and said, when I'm in that dark tunnel, John says I should recognize it and turn around. Well, I've lived my whole life in that tunnel. It's like a dark womb of comfort that you're just used to. And it's how you've been. Well, it's how you've chosen to be in the past. How do I get out of that tunnel? Well, John gave us the answer to that. Live in the listening of those who love you. They will show you how you are received in the world. Well, for me, I take that and say, when I'm in that tunnel, and I know I'm in that tunnel at some point, how do I get out? Well, for me, I've asked the people that love me, my wife, my daughter, my best friend, what are some words you would describe me with? And I wrote those down on an index card. And when I know I'm in that tunnel, I look at those words, because I know at that point, when I want out of that tunnel, I can't trust my own thoughts that are going through my head about myself, and I need to trust the people that love me. and let them show me how I am received by them in the world, because that is what is in my heart.
Wow. A couple days ago, when you and I were talking, you made a comment that I think ties into all of this. And your comment made me pause and go, oh, I need to look at this in my own business. I think what Chad just hit on is probably something a lot of us have done. And it's, how have we baked people pleasing into the systems of our business? And you tied fear into that. So connect the dots here. How did you come to that awareness, and what are the implications for you?
So again, I'm a very introspective person. So I have done a lot of research on what, the effects of ADHD and the emotions involved in that and how that's affected me, and combine that with everything that we've really, you and I have talked about for years. And part of that is developed tendencies. For me, ADHD, resulted in, it's not ADHD defines who I am, because it doesn't. The choices that I've made through that lens of ADHD in my life have resulted in me choosing to have a low self-esteem, choosing to have a low self-worth. Well, if I choose to have those things, as I have in the past, again, which doesn't mean I have to do that going forward, but that you develop in that a tendency to become a people pleaser. You need to find validation and yourself outside of yourself, because inside you feel broken and you feel like, I'm not good enough. And that you can sit down. I sat down with our team in front of a big marker board and wrote down, what does this look like? If we know that we're going to have this tendency, and I brought this in the door, it's not your fault. You guys have watched me do this. And you guys have watched me when we've had clients that have been really unreasonable about things. We've still gone ahead and done what the client wanted us to do in some respects, not all, but some. And the result is it just beats the team up, it beats me up, and it demoralizes everybody, right? There's humility is not just catering to everybody's needs. Humility is not having the need to be right all the time, but still being able to say, hey, this is the right thing to do. Here's how we're going to handle it. I am a professional and an expert in this field. I don't have the need to be right. So let's talk about it and find the right answer. And if it's me that's right, great. If it's you that's right, great. But let's dig deep and find the answer and not be attached to that outcome. But I haven't put me first in my whole life in almost any aspect until now. And it's not putting me first in a vain way or me first in a I'm a better than anything way. It's just I matter as a human being, as a person. And because I matter, what I connected that to, Sabrina, was, well, if I matter, everyone in our office matters. They all matter. We're all people. I want them to show up to work every day and be happy. Well, what does that mean? What does it look like? Well, it means we need to stand our ground as professionals when we know that we're right. And when people are treating us in a way that is, in some ways, some people have been abusive to us, and we've taken it because I've led that, because in a way I thought, gosh, I kind of deserve this because I really am not good enough. And we could have done a better job with that. But the truth is we've gone way above and beyond for a lot of people. In some respects, we've done that from a position of fear that they're, not going to accept us, or fear that they're going to talk poorly about us. And you know what, when you drop that fear, it's just a heck of a lot better. You talk about taking that into connecting that in a really long-winded way to how does that affect a business? Well, if my staff shows up every day and they've got to work with people that are full of fear themselves, that's not a fun place for them to be. That in my business, those people that, are full of fear can show up in different ways. And some of those ways that we talked about were kind of they're always searching for how you're trying to get one over on them. Because everybody in life, is trying to get one over on them, and they're going to look and look and look and look and look until they find it, and then they're going to say, I caught you. And that little I caught you for them is the reward and the justification for them to continue doing that. I caught you. see, I caught you and it justifies all this effort that I put into it because I am attempting to control the people and the environment around me. Well, if I know that's fear in me, what is it in them?
Yeah. Well, and ties right back to the mirror neurons. Like it just feeds off of itself. And, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about my own experience in business. And because since you raised this issue about how have we baked people pleasing into our systems, I've been thinking about that. And I know for myself, as I've brought on team members, it's made me much more aware of how they emulate any of my people pleasing that I do. And for me, where it has been easier to draw the boundary is with team members because my mama bear comes out. And I feel like, okay, you can push me around, but you're not going to push them around. And when I start thinking about, they come to work, they're putting their heart and soul into what we're doing. And if I let someone push us around, get really demanding and get unreasonable, and we give in, then that's a raise for a team member, or that is, professional development for them or something that I'm going to have to say no to down the road because people pleasing.
And there's no positive that comes out of that. And even, the monetary, I would say, from my own experience, and you can, tell me if you agree, but the monetary aspect of those, giving in is a heck of a lot less than the negative impact that it has on them and the rest of the team around them.
Absolutely.
As we give in, and we just roll over and take it instead of in a professional and positive way, stand up and say, I hear what you're saying and, Mr. Client, and, here's what we know is the honoring thing to do, the fair and equitable thing to do. And I hear you when you're telling me that you don't agree with me, but that's what we feel is fair and equitable, and that's the road we're going to take, right? And standing our ground.
Oh, yeah. I have to jump in here real quick. For our listeners that are super engaged in what you're talking about, I mean, it is super powerful. I think we should give them maybe a tip on how to dig into this process a little bit and maybe identify some of these things. So, Chad, I know in the little, the Snapchat of your whiteboard that you sent over, you have, kind of two different columns, right? One is the fear-based column and one is I think you had fun maybe on top of it. And they're two different mindsets, right? And then Sabrina, you created that thing for your Breakthrough on the Bayou's participants. You sent me a copy of it. I don't remember the title of it, but I have it.
The 4-week vacation mindset.
Right. So those two things combined, right? So as a business owner, here I am, I'm listening to all of this information and I'm like, you know what? There are some things that, this really makes sense to me. So if they start with, a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of it, have a fear column and a fun column, maybe help some of our peeps start off in the right direction of kind of what would they put in that fear column? What would they put in that fun column? And then once they have that, even if it's just a first run through draft, how they can utilize it, in an impactful way, both to help professionally develop their team, but then also be able to control or handle, the clients that are going crazy and they're demanding all these things.
There's a lot of questions there. So, Mike, if I stray and don't answer one, if you don't, redirecting me back to that would be helpful. Yeah, I just asked you for help, Mike. The coping mechanism. Anyway, we put that fear and fun column in there. And I think one of the most powerful things that I got out of this was a conversation with my friends Steve and Ron, where we were talking about a situation, in our business with a client. And we said, we're just not going to move forward with that client. And he said to me, if you empowered your team to make that decision without you, I think that might be worth $1 or $2 million more a year for you, for your company and your team. Do you think that might be true? And I thought, yes, that would be true. And that tied right back into the I matter. And if I matter, the team matters, right? And if the team matters, how do we show the team that they matter, that they're important, and we want their days to be fun, and we want this to be an exciting, hardworking environment, but fun, right? Well, if, one of the things I took away from Charlotte's business, there in Alexandria was what Steven said was exactly what I guarantee you Charlotte's team would say that they could do. this client is not a good fit for us for these reasons. Not that they're a bad person or mean or evil or stupid or anything, because that's not the case at all. They're people too. It's just not a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, let's not go down that road. And I think if Charlotte and her husband were traveling, they wouldn't have to ask Charlotte and her husband whether or not they could continue with that customer or not. I can assure you Charlotte and her husband would support them when they came back and they said, hey, we let this client go for these reasons.
Chad, let me just give a little background here for Mike and our other listeners. This is Charlotte Wasmer's business, Virtual Partner Advantage, in Alexandria, Louisiana. We toured their business and got to meet their entire team, and they did a presentation for us and shared how they pumpkin planned their business, and they have a very clear definition of what the right client looks like for them and the wrong client.
Right. But, you know, that fear and fun column looks different for Charlotte's business than it does for my business than it does for y'all's businesses. I think the key to it is sitting down with the team and talking about what does that ideal client, you know, look like? Where do we have fun? Where do we provide the most value? And, you know, for us, if we just look at trying to become perfectionists in everything that we do in our work, and we know we have mirror neurons, you know, what do we wind up attracting? So we wind up, you know, when I look at that fear and fun column for us, I could focus a lot on the fear column, but in the past, I've chosen a lot to focus on the negative and neglect the positive. So I'll start off with the positive. When we have the right people that we're working with, we're both, meaning us and the client, looking for a win-win outcome, right? There's give and take on both sides. We both know that perfectionism doesn't exist. We both are excited, the whole team. That's what I mean, not just me, the whole team. The team's excited. We find problems and talk through them. And they are open to solutions because they understand that we are professionals and we do hold, you know, the best outcome in mind for them. So that's the goal, is achieving the right outcome for all of us, for that win-win solution. They don't overreact and they don't personalize things. You know, they accept responsibility when they make a decision that has a poor result or an outcome that they don't like. They don't try to find a way to say, nope, I hired you, therefore everything that happens is your fault. They accept responsibility for things that they're responsible for. You know, those people will look at failures as growth opportunities. Those people are grateful that they have somebody with a team that's conscientious, that cares about achieving the right outcome for them. And they know that we'll go the extra mile to do that. And they know that we're fair and equitable. And those people ultimately, they make every day fun for the team to show up. Yeah, but they're also grateful that, you know, we have this complicated project and process we're going through and things happen, but they're grateful that you were there to make sure that it was right. And they're grateful that they have somebody there that will give them honest answers and be fair and equitable with them. And they're not looking to point the finger at everyone other than themselves and say, how can I, you know, how is this like everything else in my life? Not my fault, right? Those people, when our designers come out of meetings with them, when the fun people, they're excited, they're motivated, they're energized. They love doing that. They love coming out of those meetings. It's the creative part of them, and the client's excited, and I see the client coming out of the meeting and the client's like, God, that's amazing. I just love, gosh, I can't believe you guys can show us all those things in 3D. It's amazing. I love it. Thank you so much. And the designers and my design manager and the team are having a good time doing it. And I think the focus has to be on the team, because if we take care of the team and if we take care of making sure that the team is going to have fun and can work in a predictable environment, but have fun doing it and work with the right clients, then how does that affect the culture of the business?
So
in a huge way.
I heard a very powerful question at the start of what you said that seems like it's at the core of all of these insights that you and your team are having. Mm-hmm. And that is, where do we have fun?
Yeah.
And then tying that together with the mirror neuron effect, if you guys are clear on where you have fun and what kind of clients, what the mindset of the client is, where you're going to have fun, then you're going to be enjoying your work and enjoying what you do for them. You're putting off all kinds of vibes out there that are getting mirrored back to you all from the clients. And that, we love what you're doing for us is a product of the mirror neurons.
Yes. And it becomes that building effect, right? Can't remember the name of the author who wrote the book, The Compound Effect, but that's what it is. Things will move in that direction, one piece at a time. And if you wind up having little negative things all the time, well, that just builds into a negative experience. If you wind up having fun, positive experiences and the people around you are doing the same thing, isn't that what we would call a good culture at the business?
Yeah.
People that want to be there every day, that, I ask the team, hey, when you have a client you love working with and you've got a meeting with them that morning, what's it like for you when you're getting ready in the morning? You're like, oh, thinking about the design. I can't wait to go in and talk to them about it. I'm excited to show them. So how is that different than when you have a meeting with a client that has some real difficulties making decisions that, that is not the same to work with, that doesn't trust what you're saying to them or the ideas that you have. And they're like, oh God, I just almost dread coming in. And that to me is the foundation of culture in the business. And Charlotte really showed us that in a really impactful and powerful way just by having her team speak. They didn't even have to speak. I mean, you were there, Sabrina. You could feel the energy in that conference room from her team in such a positive way that I think all of us left there and said, wow, what do we do to have that environment? Because how great would that not only be for me because I matter, but because they matter too as people? Wouldn't that be an awesome thing for everybody in our business to show up to every day and have that?
Mm-hmm. So I want to underscore what's going on here in terms of the powerful questions, because the questions that we ask determine the solutions we find. You've shifted your questions. And Mike, you mentioned the 4-week vacation mindset, the chart that I sent you. Mike actually helped me develop this before the retreat. And what I've noticed over the last year that I've been talking to lots of entrepreneurs about 4-week vacations is a lot of negative self-talk comes up. Like, I can't take a 4-week vacation. I don't know how to get my team to love what they do or love our client. My clients will be upset if I'm gone for 4 weeks. Things won't get done. I'll feel guilty for not working. I don't trust them. They'll take advantage of me if I'm not here. I'll get pushback, on and on and on. So that's all negative self-talk. It's very limiting. And so what I am really aware of is the impact that questions have on us. And when we change our questions, we change the results that we get. And so instead of saying something like, I can't take a 4-week vacation, or I could never get my team to be that enthusiastic about working with our clients, change that to, how can I? How can I get our team? How can we get excited about our work together? Or I don't know how to engage my team members. Change that to, well, who could I learn from? What opportunities are out there for me to learn? Or it won't get done if I'm not the one doing it. Change that to, how does this get done without me?
Yeah, aren't those all everything that, as you keep saying all of those examples, Sabrina, I just see that one word flash through my head over and over and over again. Fear. It's all fear.
It is.
What am I afraid of? And, are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of, am I afraid of looking bad? Am I afraid of, whatever it is? All of those things are all founded in fear. And, what I found for me is that the more that I see that for what it is, and say, as I have all these thoughts, because I still have all those, it's not like my mindset shifted and I have no more negative thoughts. That's not true. I have probably almost the same number of negative thoughts right now that I did 4 or 5 months ago in my head. I'm choosing to ask myself different questions about it. And I'm choosing to tell myself different things about it. And for me, those discussions with John, I've got a picture on my desk and the screensaver on my phone that's me as a little kid. And I literally personified in my own mind, that's my inner child that is there. And would I talk to him and tell him the things that go through my head? Would I look at him and say, gosh, you're really not good enough. God, there you go again. You're so stupid, you can't get that right anymore. Or you didn't get it right again. I can't believe you did that, or you failed at this. And if I did that, I have a 7-year-old son right now. If I talk to my son the way that I have talked to myself in my own head and said the things to him that I've said to myself, what would he do? Well, he would run upstairs and jump under his comforter, pull it over his head, and cry. Well, what does it do if it does that to him, what am I doing to myself? And what good comes out of that? And the answer is nothing good comes out of it. We're all human beings. We're all going to make mistakes. If we want to be able to have grace and empathy for other people, that foundation starts in that center circle you had me draw, Sabrina. It starts with me. And to me, it means stop being so hard on yourself and find true acceptance of you, because you as a person matter. And when you can laugh at for me, the more I laugh at the mistakes that I make, or I've always been that way, and I stop and I laugh and giggle for a minute and say, I've chosen to be that way in the past. I don't have to be that way in the future. It's a shift in that mental mindset, and I can laugh at it at this point. But I still have those fearful negative thoughts, and I can look at them and say, gosh, that's really plagued me. I've really allowed that to plague me and chosen to allow that to plague me my whole life. Is there anything good that comes out of that? Why would I continue to make that choice for me? If I know that I matter and that little boy inside of me matters, and he does, then what choice am I going to make in every circumstance? And it's been exceedingly powerful for me, and it changes how I feel every day, all the time. And it affects everything around me in a very positive way.
So what you've shared here with us, Chad, I know as I'm listening, I've got all kinds I'm connecting with it on so many levels. I know our profit designers who are listening are connecting. I'm sure Mike's head is exploding.
Always.
And there's so much here. And so I want to kind of wrap this up with sharing some resources for our profit designers who want to go further with this for themselves. So one thing that I will do is I will share my 4-week vacation mindset chart that lists out, instead of the negative, restrictive, fear-based beliefs, some of the powerful questions that you can use to start shifting with. And then another resource that I highly recommend is the book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And then for those who have heard John Bates on our podcast, who hear us talk about John Bates all the time, and you're thinking, how do I get more John Bates? Where do I get John Bates? When he was on the podcast, he gave us a huge savings code for his Speak Like a Leader boot camp. And that's where he shares these powerful insights like live in the listening of the people who love you. And when you heard him on the podcast a couple weeks back, he talked about how to put our monkey mind on loudspeaker and then strap that monkey in the back seat. All these things that Chad and I have been talking about that have impacted us are in that Speak Like a Leader boot camp. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So Mike, I want to let you take us out of here because we can't leave you with those thoughts exploding.
There's too many of them, actually. But one of the things that, certainly resonates with me is that I actually, told the monkey story to my wife. And it is so true that, and as Chad's been talking about, there's all these voices that, and negative thoughts that will never go away. The power in all of this is having tools to be able to cope with them, or not even cope with them, but transition that negative energy into a positive energy for a positive impact personally, professionally, and also just an increased clarity and awareness of how other people might be struggling with that same thing. So some of the things that they're communicating to us has a deeper meaning. And if we can get around, the surface and get to the deeper meaning, I think there's a lot of opportunity for better relationships all around and better understanding, more communication, and just more positive vibes. And Chad, as always, thank you very much. And we have to catch up. I miss you.
I miss you too, Mike. And I would say I had two more quick thoughts there. In the past, Mike, we've chosen to not just listen to the monkey. We haven't put the monkey in the back seat, strapped him in and put a seatbelt on. We've given the monkey the keys and said, hey, you drive. I'm going to hang out back here with a margarita. Right? And, hey, monkey, you tell me where we're going and what we're doing. And that monkey's crazy. And who would let a monkey drive their car while you drink a margarita in the back seat and have no idea where you're going? Well, I chose to do that for a lot of my life. You talk about living in the listening to get out of that tunnel. I want to share one example with you guys that was ridiculously powerful for me. I was on a walk with my daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, she's 10, and it was 6 in the morning, and we're going for a couple-mile walk. And I asked her, I said, Kate, what are some words that you would use to describe me? And she said, oh, you're a great father, you're kind, you have a huge heart, you're compassionate, you're giving. And she just goes on and on and on. And she said, well, Dad, why are you asking me? And I said, that's a great question, Kate. She said, how would you describe you? And I said, a few months ago, if I was honest with you, I would have said, I'm a failure. I'm a terrible father. I'm a horrible husband. I'm not a good person. And I kept going on and on, those thoughts I had in my head from the past. And she stopped me. It's dark outside. We're walking, and she says, Dad, do you even hear the words coming out of your mouth? That's not you at all. And you say, that is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just have to say, Chad, that to think about you having that conversation with your 10-year-old daughter and how powerful it is for her to call you out on that, because 10-year-old girls are very vulnerable to all that self-doubt creeping in and really taking their shine away. So that conversation, I think, had impact on multiple levels.
But definitely, Sabrina, we went home and she wrote down that evening on little pieces of paper all of the ways that I described her. And they're on her wall above her bed right now, even. And along with a note that says, live in the listening of those who love you. So it'll make me cry if I think about it in a really great way.
Other people might be crying here too, Chad. So thank you for sharing that. I think that this has created a lot of self-awareness in our listeners and aha moments. And I really encourage you all to keep the conversation going. Share what's coming up for you in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. We'll hop in there and continue the conversation with you. Thank you so much, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for being part of my journey.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.